Have you ever wondered how AI is changing the music industry? Well, here we go. It's my pleasure to introduce three colleagues of mine who work in the music industry today. Larry Edoff from Sarasota, Florida, music producer, composer, performer, teacher. Did I forget anything, Larry?
Great friend to you, man.
Great friend to me. Thank you. And Nick Porcaro and Pat Scandalis from Moforte company in California we're going to learn more about. Welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be here, Peter and Larry.
Hey, guys.
Yeah, great to be here.
Let's start with Nick and Pat, actually. So you work for Moforte. Can you tell us a little bit about your company, what the kind of products you're developing, and what your roles are?
Yeah, I'll take the lead on that. So Moforte is essentially a spin out of Stanford CCRMA, the computer music lab at Stanford. And our mission is to bring physical modeling instrument technology to market. So instruments that you can perform like real instruments. And so unlike a lot of sample libraries where, you play a saxophone and then you have to go back and re-articulate it with key switches, with our product, you can play saxophone and you can directly manipulate it. You can directly make it growl, overblow, bend. And that's because we have physics-based models for all the musical instruments that are in our library of instruments that are available. And so we've been doing that for about 12 years, but it's based on research that we did at Stanford in the 90s. And we actually spun a company out of Stanford in the 90s to commercialize this technology, and it was too early. We wound up making a little tiny wavetable synthesizer that wound up being on essentially every PC between 2000 and 2003. And then that technology wound up getting transferred to analog devices. And 8 years ago, analog devices gave all that technology back to us. And so we're essentially re-commercializing what we researched in the 90s at Stanford. Nick, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, that's a pretty accurate overview. I mean, basically, my motivation for this thing was in the early '80s, the digital keyboards kind of sounded like shit, and I wanted to make a better one. So I just started looking around, and I happened to meet Julius Smith over at Stanford. He was giving lectures on physical modeling, and I somehow wound up getting involved in being in his classes all the time, and transcribed everything he said for a couple of years, and eventually learned how to do the coding and all this stuff that Pat talked about with analog devices and whatnot. That was my early work, was kind of like the foundation of that. Just kind of I just an early mashup of like a drawing program and the next computer sound kit and music kit, and we're able to use that to design the physical modeling algorithms that we've been working on for years now. So that's kind of what the background is. And what was that book that guy wrote, Pat?
Andrew Nelson wrote a book called The Sound of Innovation.
Sound of Innovation, yeah.
Yeah, which is about...
If you want to look at The Sound of Innovation, he did kind of it was like a master's project on our thing. So you could look at that as a reference.
Okay, I'm a physicist, so I'm intrigued. So but I don't know what physical modeling of instruments actually means and what it exactly is. Can you talk about it a little bit? I still have some sort of device, I suppose. It's not a real guitar. And
let me dive into that briefly. We have a really good deck on this, which I urge you to grab some of the pictures to put in your video. But basically, the basic idea is if you have the partial differential equations or a string or a bore or a reed, if you could solve those partial differential equations in real time, you could make a performable instrument. And my senior thesis work in physics at my university back in the 80s was actually about solving these partial differential equations. And I did it a bunch of different ways. You can do it with finite element analysis. You can do it with a thing called Rayleigh-Ritz. But there's a really beautiful solution that dates to about 1760 called D'Alembert's solution. And what D'Alembert observed, I think in his barn with a rope stretched across the barn, is that if you pluck a string, that initial shape travels down to each end, inverts in phases, comes back and adds together and goes back and forth. And so that's the so-called traveling wave solution for the partial differential equation. And it basically says you start with the initial shape, you send it one way, you flip it when you get to the terminations, and you send it back and you add it together. So everything that we are doing is essentially a DSP realization of D'Alembert's solution. And we use delay lines to represent the essentially either the string or the bore, and we set it up with some initial conditions and we get it rolling. And it's basically doing that same thing where it's going back and forth and flipping over. And we can do that in real time. And then we can put controls on it that are like the controls on a real instrument. For instance, on the guitar, we have harmonics. We can scrape the string against the frets, which is a kind of termination that's in the delay line. And for the flute, we can overblow it, which turns out to be a second delay line wrapped around the initial delay line, because the mouthpiece is its own transmission line system, and then the bore is another transmission line system. And so with this technology, we're able to create models of real sounding instruments, and you can put performance controls on them, play them like real instruments. And then here's the last magical miracle piece. Why does it sound like a particular guitar? Why does it sound like a particular reed instrument? Well, we have a technique where we take recordings of, for instance, we took a recording of every fret, every note on every fret on my guitars for all of my different guitars. And we get a recording. And what happens is if you look at that recording, you can see how the partials, the harmonics evolve in time. Sometimes on a classical guitar, the high notes, the partials decay very quickly. And on a steel string guitar, the high notes decay for a long time. So we can see what the decay rates are of all the partials. And what we do is we use that data with some magic calibration software to design the filters that are in the model. And what we essentially do is force the model to generate the same spectrum as the original sound. And now you have a Les Paul. Now you have a Stratocaster. Now you have an acoustic guitar. So that's kind of what the technology is all about.
It's brilliant. So let me ask you, are you you doing the miking techniques as well? Or you're using...
No, we don't do that. I mean, it's certainly possible to do that. We're generating, there is something that we are doing though that is close to that. For acoustic guitars, what you can think of the body of the acoustic guitar as a very small, very tiny reverb. And if you were to tap the table on an acoustic guitar, you would get the impulse response of the body of the guitar. Okay. And so there's a thing that Julius, who invented all of this technology, came up with. He said, well, look, we can make a model of this string. And then here's the answer to your miking question. We can run it through a big filter that represents the body. And that's not a lot different than the miking thing. It's just another big filter that represents the spatialization in the room, the reflections in the room. But that filter is huge. It can be so computationally huge that it might blow your model out of real time. And what Julius realizes, it's a linear digital signal processing system. Actually, you could take the impulse response and make it the excitation for the model, so that you basically just tap a guitar body and you get the impulse response and you play that into the model. And now you have a thing that sounds like my classical guitar, my dobro steel string guitar, because the impulse responses are different for all of those different guitar bodies.
That's amazing. And it still has resonance and harmonics as well?
Yeah, it has resonance. You can hear the resonance. And there's a couple, we have a parametric EQ that boosts the tap tones. If you ever work with a luthier, the table of the guitar does have specific tap tones that are reinforced by the bracing. And you can find those tap tones in the literature. You can just look them up. There's specific frequencies that are common for guitars.
So Pat, or Nick for that matter, I was wondering, so you're solving for string, it's only for string instruments, correct? That you're solving the different, oh, you do more?
It's for strings, it's for woodwinds.
Oh, I see.
We have, the woodwinds are quite good. And we have some new technology coming out that is old technology that we developed at Stanford that Nick can talk about this a little bit, where idiophones, where any instrument where you hit it and it generates partials, overtones, not harmonics, because they're non-harmonic. They're not in the harmonic series. So if you hit a bell, you probably know this, that the overtones of the bell are non-harmonic. And Nick, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Oh yeah, Julius and I are developing sort of a riff on this thing called coupled mode synthesis that we did a little while ago. Actually, the idea of modal synthesis is you just bang like an idiophone, like Pat's saying, like a orchestral bell or something like that, and then you could look at how all the modes of the the overtones of decay in time, and then essentially once you've got that, you could design a filter that implements it essentially. But then the interesting thing, all right, if you just do that, you're just getting the same thing immediately back. Not interesting. So how do you excite it is the next question. So like we're coming up with like, a model of like, a mallet, for example, like a sphere, and it could have different levels of hardness. And then you essentially bang the spectrum of one thing against the other thing. And then you get, interesting results that you could tune. So that's something we've been working on the last few months. Just decided to add to the our palette of things that we can do.
And I have something to add to this as well. Is that, there's a lot of things you don't realize are idiophones. The Rhodes is an idiophone because it's a thing that you bang and it resonates. The Wurlitzer is an idiophone. The vibes are an idiophone. Tubular bells are of course an idiophone. So it's able to cover all of those different types of modeling situations. And then I will direct you to a website after this where you can find some sound examples from the 90s of things like a tubular bell, a Tibetan bell that I brought back from Tibet, the wind chimes that still sit outside my door at my house. And the most amazing thing about this technique is when if you were to play back, for instance, the wind chime, and you were to play back a bunch of samples, the samples are just added together, and it's kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
With these models, the partials are coupled, and so when you play the wind chimes and then you let it ring, you hear this amazing shimmer of the partials trading energy back and forth. It's not unlike the shimmer that you hear in the soundboard of a piano, and that's why the model is such a better way to do this technology.
And in the end, also the piano will fall out of this, and
yeah,
I'll find what I was looking for, 45 years ago.
The piano.
Now, there are piano synthesizers out there right now, but we'll just do a better one.
So can I ask you one very technical question then? Yeah. It sounds all amazing to me. So when you have a string, I have two fixed ends. That's one thing, and I can kind of understand how you might model that. But when you have a bell, it's sort of a free interface, right? How do you simulate and get the frequencies out of that sort of thing?
At that point, we go to the recording and you do spectral analysis. You find the partials, the overtones, and you measure the rate at which each overtone decays, and then you create a model, a basic massive bank of resonators, where every overtone has its own resonator, and you design the filters for each of those resonators to have the same decay rate.
Do you want to see it? I could show you the screen if you want. You could see it.
And I'll tell you one crazy thing that you can do with it is, unlike a bell which is cast from bronze, we can grab those partials and we can move them around.
And that's right. Yeah, once we have a model, we can mess with it. Can I do a screen share on this? It looks like I might be able to. Yeah, here. Do you see it?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so great. So this is an example. I'll play the original sound over here.
In the blue.
I don't know if you can hear that, could you?
Yeah, we can, yeah.
All right, let me not limit the amount of time. Let's go. Okay, that's a bell example. And interestingly, that had a bit of a blip in it because it was a cheap recording. But for this thing, that kind of doesn't matter. All right, that's the original. And then here's the synthesized. Sounds pretty damn close, right?
And not in here in the studio, we can't hear the difference.
So how do we do that? Well, we basically, you just sort of analyze the spectrum of the sound at different points. And you can see in this graph down here, there's sort of this red and blue lines that are matching these peaks over here. Will sort of indicate where the modes are matching. And as you go through time, you could watch them all kind of decay, like Pat was saying, and boom, they fall off. But in the beginning, there's this crazy chaotic energy, and it's a little unclear what's going. But you just get in there a few frames and you start seeing it settle a little bit. And some of this stuff that's lower here is noise, and you can't hear it anyway. So that's the analysis side of this thing. You would basically, okay, once I've got all these peaks here, like Pat was saying, then we could modulate them, do unnatural, unholy things with them. And then of course the other part of it is the excitation, the model. What am I gonna hit it with? Am I gonna hit it with this mallet thing? Am I gonna hit it with some arbitrary waveform? I mean, so there's a couple of different possibilities once you've got this.
Crazy question.
happening.
Does it relate to synesthesia, where you can see colors as well, related to
I'll let
the partials and the
I'm going to
harmonics?
answer that one.
Right?
I experienced synesthesia, and I don't think this relates to synesthesia, but I do hear a bell synesthetically. So, for instance, to me, the chord D is yellow, and the chord B minor is speckled orange. And when I hear a bell, I just see a bunch of colors and hear textures and shimmers and things like that. And that thing that I brought up earlier about the wind chime, when everything is coupled together and it's shimmering at the very end, that to me is a sparkly, speckly blue veil of shimmer. So for most people, it doesn't relate to synesthesia, but for me, it does.
Because I feel
Yeah.
it. I feel the colors sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'd have to sit with that a little while to get that. It's brilliant. Yeah.
So this requires a lot of computing. Obviously, do you use any AI for that yet, or is that ever an option for you? Do you see value in that, or doesn't play a role for you?
We're using AI kind of helping us analyze things and kind of sift through stuff and try out different. So actually, interestingly, in that graph you can't see it anymore, right? You're seeing me now, right?
Yeah, we see.
Yeah,
Good.
we see just you.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
that's fine.
So the kind of things that you can use AI for here when you're doing an analysis like that is like, okay, so I'm not going to sit down there and listen to thousands of samples and thousands of notes, right? So what you can do is you can basically use a bunch of analysis techniques to do comparisons, like the original to the synthesized one, and there are certain metrics based on on how we hear and energy levels and things like that. So instead of just laboriously coding up one or two or three that I maybe knew about, I could just go ask Claude, hey, just come up with a bunch of different metrics and then techniques to do the measuring and give me a score of what's going on. So it's an iterative process. You basically you have it just sort of run all these comparisons, and I have a big sort of a comparison workflow for dealing with this kind of stuff, and different people can review it and give subjective results to see if to see really what's going on or not. That's another thing. The metrics might give you the math right, but it's like there's still something wrong in there. I can't hear it, and it's like, why can't you? So then I go back to Claude and say, well, wait a minute, I can hear this damn rumble in there. Why do none of your metrics pick that up? So that's it's sort of like the way we develop algorithms in the old days, but now you can iterate a lot faster, and I don't have to sit there. And I'm going to tell you a dirty secret: I haven't written a goddamn line of code in 6 months.
That's amazing. It's a great seed for ideas, the AI. That's what I find.
But what will it do to the music industry, Larry? So are you concerned?
No. I think it's a helpful tool. You still have to have musicality. I'm sure you guys have used Suno quite a bit, right? Or something.
Not a lot, just a little bit, really, just to make some backing tracks.
Say it again.
Not a lot, just a little bit, just to make some backing tracks. But I'm in agreement with you. It's a tool, and I was just at this AI for Music Summit at Berkeley School of Music 2 weeks ago, Berkeley College, and what struck me there is all the press is about you're ripping off my music. There's no attribution. Attribution is a super important issue, big concern for people. But most of what I saw there, AI for Music, was about the mundane tasks of creating music, tools to help you expand on the string section, tools to help you with mix down, tools to help you with sketches. And so I personally, I'm not too worried about AI. I think it's just yet another set of tools.
Well, okay. So I know some people around here that that are not really like hardcore musicians. They're more like artists, producer types, and sometimes they'll get a gig for doing like, sort of background music for some commercial or some film thing or some. There's this one guy that's doing a fashion show and he wanted some background music for the, when the models were coming out. He just blasted out a bunch of stuff in Suno, and the producers of the event just didn't give a damn. They couldn't. They would make small remarks. They couldn't tell. It depends who the audience is, right? If it's general audience or if it's just sort of background stuff, there's going to be a whole lot of work that people that would have been composers. I mean, yes, maybe those composers would have been using DAWs to make their tracks. Now they don't even have to do that. They just go to Suno, just knock something out. I think there's going to be a whole lot.
Are dealing with, if you're right as a composer myself, if you're writing for an artist and you want something really specific, you still need to spend time with the artist. You still need to experience their love of whether it's classical or jazz or rock. Each song, send me 20 templates of songs you love. The whole thing reminds me of a story. When I was for my master's in music school, there was a guitar maker that came in, and he was in Paris. He only made 3 guitars a year. I'll try and remember the guy's name.
Yeah.
And he would talk to the classical guitarist about, what kind of wood he wanted, what kind of strings he loved, what kind of embellishment, whether it's certain beads or how he wanted it designed. So the guy would go to Paris and pretty much go to dinner with him, eat food with him, talk to him about life.
Yeah.
And then 8 months later, he only made 3 guitars a year. Each guitar must have been about $250,000 each guitar. But when it was done, it was really that human being. It became that person.
Yeah.
And AI, it's helpful, but you got to keep going back and back and back. It's like firing up like a
I completely
like pottery.
Very for stuff that's real and artistically.
It's good, though. It's really good.
Absolutely. But for stuff that's bullshit, which we know 90% of the world is bullshit.
Yeah.
Going to be a lot of composition jobs lost.
Right. Right.
Within my AI working group, we're putting together a 4-point position about generative music. Yeah. And the first bullet is creators and composers are the curators of human emotional content. And I think this is true is that not only do humans really understand how to create the emotional component of music, but ultimately in the end, the consumers of that music can still tell the difference between if the human created or if they didn't create it. Can you imagine, if a Hans Zimmer track was just created by a 14-year-old in a bedroom? The audience would detect that immediately, and they would, have some uncanny valley. And so I still think that composers and creators, and I'll tell you why that creators is in there. I think they are indispensable in the creation of emotional content.
I don't know. I'm going to push back. I'm going to say you're true. Both you guys are right for the real stuff, for the honest stuff, for the high budget stuff. Okay. The world isn't all honest and high budget. That's my point.
Yeah.
Well, it depends who your audience is. If you're hanging around an audience that really wants to feel emotion and go to a concert and really experience, pain, suffering, and beauty at the same time, AI is not going to give it to you. If you look at those AI graphics of artwork, it's like, it's extraordinary. Sometimes you'll see many dimensions of it, but the dimensions are thin. And it's like, you can tell it's pieced together. Is it improving? It's getting better probably every week. It's unbelievable. But I'm still not fully convinced. But maybe it's because, what touches us is that depth of, there's so much depth in the art that we're aware of.
Yeah, but who's performing on stage if AI composed the music? What am I looking at on stage then? A computer? I'm talking about live music now. I still want to believe that we all want to
You may be looking at a visual thing.
I think a lot of AI compositions still have human performers.
Okay.
I've done it before, and Larry
Yes.
knows about bands that have done this before. They come up with an idea in Suno, and then they make charts for it, and then they perform it.
I saw a demonstration of that at Berkeley. As a hip hop artist, used Suno as a scratch pad, and his sister, his brother, a keyboard player played some stuff in. Suno came back with some stuff, and then they learned it and they put it in Pro Tools with them playing it.
Exactly.
They changed it up too.
That's like an honest use of it, I think.
But there's nothing wrong with that. You have to still perform it and play it. I mean, look, you could go on imslp.org and get a Mozart symphony and just read from that exactly to a T, which is what a composer does, and then you can change it and add your own flavor to it. It's still it's interpretive. That's just the same kind of thing. It's getting better. I wish sometimes Suno would print out the music though too. That would be fantastic. That's coming. I'm sure.
Yeah, they can generate MIDI at this point.
MIDI,
and
good,
I think, and I think that MIDI can go into Dorico or MuseScore.
Okay, I'm gonna give you guys a heads up. You heard it here first. When Fable, you know what Fable 5 is? The Anthropic AI model.
Yeah.
It was released briefly, and then the feds took it down because they thought it could be, weaponized, essentially use biological weapons and stuff. Well, I had it between like June 9th and June 12th. I was able to do crazy ass shit with it. I was able to imagine this, Larry, a real book chart with a moderately complex tune, scan it in, and then turn it into a MuseScore music XML document that's spaced nicely and is correct. It's got all the right chords from handwritten calligraphy. Yeah. And I'm like, God damn it, this is great, man. I'm going to I finally fixed the holy grail problem. Then they took it away.
Here we go.
Oh, no.
They took it away, but it's coming back.
Nick, you got to send it to me.
It's coming back real soon, probably this next week. Wow. And once that happens, you're going to see all kinds of people. I mean, it was the closest thing to like a spiritual digital experience that I've ever had before. Wow. I was just like, I can't believe all these problems. I mean, I'm not young, all right? I've been around this stuff for a long time, and I'm just seeing problems that have been like, in the wings for a long time, just can't break through. I was like, boom, they're going to be breaking through. So I would say within the next several months, you're going to see some mind-blowing stuff.
But,
you heard it here first.
But Nick, what about new music genres then? If the training data is that of existing genres, then do you think it can come up with new genres?
No. Well, the AI can only do what it's been trained on. Blah bullshit.
Not true.
It can figure stuff out. It could generate new genres the way we can, right? It'll take a mashup of country and jazz or something, and then do another version.
The voices I'm hearing though are all the same. Vocally, it should be changing. I'm sure it will be.
I'd like to make a comment, two comments about this. One, so Jordan Rudis is our business partner. He's like the fourth Beatle. He has been working on a project with the MIT Media Lab called the Jambot. And what the Jambot is a self-contained large language model that runs on his computer. And large language models respond to text input and generate the next anticipated token in text. But what his large language model is doing is it responds to musical queries, MIDI. And it's been trained on him on like 10 hours of MIDI scores of Jordan. And Jordan plays Jordan Baroque into it, and it responds to him with Jordan Baroque. And then he plays Jordan Jazz, and it responds to him with Jordan Jazz. So I think there's a huge number of undiscovered countries for what people are going to do with AI. And then my second comment is, I don't know if either of you remember this, but Switched on Bach came out, and then in 1970 there was the synthesizer panic. Synthesizers are going to replace musicians. The New York Musicians Union banned musicians in New York from using synthesizers, and it was this enormous panic. And creative artists found lots of cool new ways to use synthesizers. And I think the same thing is going to happen with AI. A lot of cool new uses of AI.
There's going to be a lot of cool new uses, and a lot of people are going to lose their job, and a lot of people's jobs are going to be different.
They'll be different, yeah.
And a lot of people are going to be able to do 10 times as much. I'm one of them. I'm doing 10 times as much as I did last year. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
So maybe
and it's easy for me too.
So maybe it's
everything.
So maybe it's the feedback between the AI and the human that we get to new genres faster. That could also be, no?
You know, in the end, for a piece of music to be validated, you know what it takes? It takes the audience. The audience has to like it.
Yeah.
And if
composers got to like it first.
Yeah. So if the AI is generating stuff and nobody likes it, you know, it doesn't reach you emotionally, it doesn't get past the prefrontal cortex, then it's worthless AI generated stuff.
Yeah, I find the best AI, at least my experience with using Suno, is when I compose something really solid, it comes back something to me really solid and just sometimes over the top better, but I can't say it's better. It's just a little different. It will put in like some odd time in a section. It will give me a new section, but architecturally it gets a little, I have to edit it. It's a little messed up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Are you using the Suno? You're probably using the paid one that's got more features in it, Larry.
All the features, yeah.
I actually haven't done enough of that yet.
Yeah, I edit it. I use Logic and Pro Tools, but I'm mostly Logic. I'll take it from Suno after it's finished and then get the stems and then edit it myself.
Pat, I have this book in front of me by Susan Rogers, recording engineer of Prince in the 1980s. She wrote this book called This Is What It Sounds Like. Obviously, when doves cry, but okay. And she defines these 8 dimensions, I believe it is, of music. And basically how to assess your own music taste and so forth. I think, so that's, in some ways, I think this is relevant to AI, right? So she has authenticity is important. Realism, novelty, melody, lyrics, rhythm, timbre, pronounce it correctly, form and function. Okay.
Yeah.
So I could go by that. And so is there anything that AI is particularly good or bad at? I don't know. Or incapable of? I don't know. I think authenticity is one of those things, right? We're coming back to live performances, I think. I mean, you still want, many people prefer authentic music over perfect music, right? Like you want to have.
Can I comment on that one as well?
Please.
Authenticity.
Yeah.
So somebody did a country tune in Suno Studio about 2 months ago. It was called Walk My Walk. And it sounded like a guy who had lived a really hard life, talking about all the bad things that happened in his life. And his voice was very gravelly. And it was an attempt to be very authentic. But the problem with it was, well, first off, you could hear the artifacts. I hear even in the stems, I hear the artifacts.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Let's for sure.
But the second part of the problem was it had been trained on a lot of achy breaky songs. And every 2 bars was the next achy breaky country trope. And there were so many tropes that my brain, I couldn't keep up with the tragedy in this guy's life.
Yeah. This stuff, actually, I gave a talk at Karma a few weeks ago, and I basically had Claude just go review all the work that I did last year and make like a deck. I'm kind of like, I don't talk like that. Smack, 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 smack. So yeah, you still have to do a bunch of editing. It doesn't completely have your voice yet. And it's the same thing with the music. Like Pat's saying, you're just gonna that example is a bunch of cliches rolled together. But maybe the guy wasn't a good prompter. I've had more trouble with lyrics actually in Suno than music. Just trying to.
I find the orchestration has major problems in the AI. Because number one, you're hearing the guitar. It's the same strat. I hear the same strat sound, the same delay. It doesn't have the dimensions, not even near the dimensions of a real guitar player. It's perfectly, rhythmically and quantization. It's so perfect. And the placement is wild. And there is some subtlety, but not enough at least for a real musician, to hear the depth of sound.
I would agree.
And
Have you
all of
ever
it,
played? Have you ever
vocally,
just played
yeah.
the piano into it before, Larry, and then have it rearrange a little bit of what you're doing?
Yeah, I have. It's cool. It takes a lot of what I do and it takes it to that next level. It knows who I listen to, and it's
Yeah,
starting. You know, it's got the Keith Jarrett, McCoy Tyner, Wynton Kelly. It's got
right.
a Bud Powell. It's got all the cats, and then it has, you know, maybe a Bruce Hornsby vibe sometimes in there.
Yeah,
Whatever you
yeah.
heard in your life, you hear it in there. But
Right. But it's not sounding like your Steinway.
no, not even close. No,
Not even
right.
close.
And it sounds like
Yeah.
they have like there's always a pad on the piano. It's something, it's dimensions, and they're using the same technique every time. It's kind of like, you know, you kind of get inspired for what you need just to give you that next idea. But it's not, you still have to really go that step to go further to enlighten yourself. You know what I mean? As a human being. But it's amazing. I love it. I
It'll
love
probably get better. It's only really been good for not even a year, really, when you think
Mm.
about it. So we're still kind of in early days with it.
But I, you know, your project Moforte, I love it. I've used it. Jordan is he's a fantastic pianist, and I met him with you at the NAMM show. I think he's a great guy, like you guys.
Right.
I love your
Mhm.
work. And Pat, I was saying with Nick, I saw Nick from the early days starting the business, man. I'd go to his place in the city and we'd hang out and he'd show me the development. It was great. And I know you
Very
guys
cool.
have known each other for a long time.
Well, actually, I'll tell one little anecdote about how we reformed. It was about 2012. We took I took about 10 years off to be more of a musician. And Pat was doing some work with Liquid Audio, a big,
First
online.
legal download company. I ran
Yeah,
this.
yeah. Anyway, those periods in our lives ended, and I was like, "Yo, let's go hang out at Karma for a while and see if we can come up with something." And I had already done an iPhone app, so I was kind of, and I already picked up the pieces from some of the work we did in the mid '90s. So I kind of got my head back in it after the better part of 10 years of not really doing anything with it. And in one night, I put together a guitar app that could play "Smoke on the Water." And let's see if I still got it here.
I've got it here if you want me to show it.
Why don't you pull it out?
Yeah, let me pull it up. So Nick, we started from the guitar that we developed in '96, and so this is 2012, and so I met Nick at Karma, and he wanted to ask me questions about the guitar, and I was like, I don't remember anything about this, and then I left, and then I came back at around 6 the next morning, and
Right.
Nick had the physically modeled electric guitar from 1996 running on an iPhone so that you could play the chords from "Smoke on the Water." And let's see if I can get this here.
Let's see. Here we go.
I've got it right here.
You got it?
Yeah,
Good.
this isn't Rock Out, which is what you did, but this is the product that came out of this. And I'm actually going to put, let's see, Mojo, demos development. I will find "Smoke on the Water" here.
Is it even in there?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Let's see. I just have to get up to S. There's so many.
Here, I have a Nagila.
I'll do Iron Man.
Well, that's not right. Hold on, man.
Never heard that song before.
Yeah.
I give you one piece to finish this podcast with.
All right.
Yeah, it could strum itself too. So
There's
This
still
up so
people
you
out there who
can
love
hear
their
it.
jobs, clearly, Larry.
okay, so this is Iron Man. I'll get it close to the.
Oh, that's cool. Little Ozzy Osbourne.
Right, it's the Ozzy Osbourne thing.
Fantastic.
So
Oh, I love it.
that's what
Right.
Nick did in one night.
Wow.
Nick is
Yeah.
amazing.
Guys,
Yep.
I hate to cut this short because we just get going here, but so Nick, why don't we reconnect when you fired up Fable again, hopefully soon, and share that with us.
Guys, you got to come down here.
It's going to be some bizarre
That
shit.
was great.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for joining the show. I'm so sorry we have to come to an end here at some point, but this is fantastic. So I learned a lot. I'm not the musician in this crowd, obviously, here, but just standing by. But at least I'm a physicist, so I appreciate what you're working on. I need to learn more about what you do, actually. Very interesting.
So we'll send you the deck that talks about the underlying technology. And I will send you a link to a bunch of sound examples from the 90s. And we're still re-realizing these sound examples. We did all of our research back in the 90s on these Next machines. You can see there's a Next machine sitting right there.
Oh, wow.
We still have models on that Next machine that we haven't harvested yet.
That's amazing.
So,
I have some music I'll show you. I can share with these guys from what I did in Suno, how I started also from the piano to the...
Thank you, then. Thanks all the way to California from Florida today. So
Nick, Pat, great to see you guys.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun.
Guys, nice meeting you, Peter. Good to see you, Larry.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right.
And just
stay cool down there. I know it's pretty hot.